The Fort Pierce federal courtroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation and anxiety. Every eye in the room was fixed on the judge's bench, and the silence was so profound it seemed to press against the walls. The stakes were enormous, and everyone present knew that history was about to be made. Outside, the world watched Ryan Routh's fate unfold in real time. News vans lined the street, reporters jostled for position, and cameras captured every moment, broadcasting the tension to millions across the country. On September 23, 2025, the jury foreman rose, his hands trembling slightly as he held the verdict forms. The room held its breath as he read the words, "Guilty," 5 times, once for each charge. Each pronouncement landed like a hammer blow, echoing through the chamber. Routh, 59, sat motionless at the defense table, his face drained of color, his future sealed in an instant. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then, without warning, chaos erupted. From the gallery, Routh's daughter, Sarah, screamed, her voice piercing the stunned silence. "Oh my God, he's trying to kill himself!" Her cry sent a ripple of panic through the courtroom. In a desperate act, Routh had lunged for a pen and tried to stab himself in the neck, his movements frantic and wild. The moment was surreal, as if the world had tilted off its axis. 4 U.S. marshals sprang into action, leaping over chairs and tackling him to the ground. They wrestled the pen away, their shouts mixing with the chaos as they struggled to restrain him. The courtroom, moments before so controlled and orderly, was now a scene of panic and confusion. People shouted, some ducked for cover, others simply froze in shock. Gasps and shouts filled the room as the marshals subdued Routh, pinning him to the floor before hauling him up and leading him away, his hands bound tightly behind his back. The sound of his daughter's sobs echoed after him. Sarah sobbed uncontrollably, her grief and fear raw and unfiltered. She shouted for her father, her voice breaking as others in the gallery tried to comfort her. Judge Aileen Cannon called for order, her gavel pounding and her voice cutting through the chaos. She demanded calm, her authority the only anchor in the storm of emotion. The verdict was final, the legal process complete, but the emotional fallout was just beginning. The jurors sat in stunned silence, some wiping away tears, others staring straight ahead. Routh's desperate act was a stark, unforgettable reminder of the darkness and desperation that had brought everyone to this moment. It was a moment that would haunt all who witnessed it. The trial's end was as dramatic and shocking as its beginning, a fitting conclusion to a case that had gripped the nation. The final scene in the courtroom left a lasting impression. Fear, shock, and the sobering consequences of violent intent etched on every face. Outside, the world would soon learn of the chaos that had erupted inside. Reporters scrambled to relay the news, their voices urgent as they described the unprecedented events. But for those who had been present, the memory of that day, the fear, the heartbreak, and the desperate act would linger long after the camera stopped rolling. Who is Ryan Routh? His name may not be familiar, but his story is one that shocked a nation and left a community reeling. He wasn't a politician, a celebrity, or a spy. Instead, Ryan Routh was a 59-year-old former construction worker from Greensboro, North Carolina, a quiet, unassuming man living in a modest neighborhood, blending in with the everyday rhythms of small-town life. To his neighbors, Routh was reserved, someone who kept to himself and rarely drew attention. But behind closed doors, he nursed radical beliefs and dangerous ambitions that no one suspected. The contrast between his outward calm and his inner turmoil was stark. Routh's past was troubled. He had a history of failed, violent schemes, including a bizarre attempt to hire mercenaries to fight in Ukraine. Law enforcement had tracked his activities for years, but he always seemed to slip through the cracks. Until now. As a convicted felon, Routh was legally barred from owning firearms. Yet determined to carry out his plans, he managed to illegally acquire an SKS rifle, a weapon he believed would help him make a statement. This act alone was a serious crime, but it was only the beginning. Routh's obsession with Donald Trump, who was then running for president, consumed him. Fueled by conspiracy theories and political anger, he set out on a road trip from North Carolina to Florida, convinced he was on a mission of historic importance. His destination? A Trump campaign rally in West Palm Beach. The charges he would soon face were grave: attempted assassination, illegal gun possession, and assaulting a federal officer. The courtroom would soon become the stage for a dramatic reckoning. Routh wasn't just angry, he was methodical and deliberate, carefully planning each step of his plot. He wrote out detailed plans, gathered supplies, and took real, concrete actions to turn his violent fantasies into reality. His plot unfolded just months after another attempt on Trump's life, intensifying national anxiety and putting law enforcement on high alert. The country watched in disbelief as details emerged. Routh's story quickly became a chilling example of how political anger and personal grievances can spiral into real-world violence, threatening the safety of public figures and the stability of society. In the end, his actions threatened not just one person, but the very fabric of the democratic process, reminding us all of the dangers that can arise when anger turns into action. On the morning of September 15, 2024, the sun rose over the manicured greens of Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach. The day seemed ordinary, with golfers teeing off and staff preparing for another busy day at one of Florida's most exclusive courses. But hidden among the dense foliage near the sixth green, Ryan Routh waited in silence, his heart pounding as he watched the world go by, unseen. Armed with a loaded SKS rifle, Routh had spent hours constructing a makeshift sniper's nest, carefully camouflaging his position to blend in with the surrounding vegetation. He had chosen his spot with precision, giving himself a clear line of sight to the green. As Donald Trump played his round, Routh watched every movement, his finger hovering near the trigger. He was patient, waiting for the perfect moment, convinced that his plan was foolproof. But the Secret Service was vigilant. An agent, trained to notice even the slightest irregularity, caught a glimpse of movement in the bushes. Instantly, the calm of the morning shattered. Realizing he'd been spotted, Routh panicked. He abandoned his rifle and bolted from his hiding place, desperate to escape. In his rush, he left behind not only his weapon, but also crucial evidence of his intent. As he fled the scene, a quick-thinking witness named Tommy McGee noticed Routh's car and memorized the license plate. Within minutes, police were able to trace the plate back to Routh, setting off a rapid manhunt. Routh's escape was short-lived. Law enforcement quickly closed in, and he was apprehended not far from the golf course, still reeling from the failed attempt. The golf course, which had nearly become the site of a national tragedy, was now swarming with investigators and security personnel, its peaceful atmosphere shattered. Routh's meticulous planning had brought him dangerously close to success. Investigators found evidence of his preparations, notes, maps, and the abandoned rifle scattered near his sniper's nest. The Secret Service's unwavering vigilance and quick response had made all the difference, preventing a potential catastrophe. News of the narrowly averted attack spread quickly, leaving the nation in shock and sparking conversations about security and the risks faced by public figures. Routh's arrest set the stage for a dramatic and closely watched trial, as the public demanded answers and accountability. The failed attack was a stark reminder of the ever-present dangers that surround those in the public eye, and the constant vigilance required to keep them safe. As the world watched, it became clear that this story was far from over. The investigation was just beginning. In the days that followed, investigators would uncover just how close Routh had come to changing history, and how a moment of vigilance had saved the day. At trial, Routh made a bold move. He chose to represent himself. Judge Aileen Cannon warned him, but he refused a lawyer. Routh's courtroom behavior was erratic. He filed bizarre motions, like asking for a putting green and strippers in jail. He rambled, ignored legal procedures, and frustrated the judge. His main defense? No shot, no attempt. But the law says planning and steps toward a crime are enough. Routh's lack of legal skill slowed the trial and confused the jury. His arguments were weak, his tactics strange. The prosecution was ready to present overwhelming evidence. Routh's self-representation only made his situation worse. The trial became a spectacle, not a defense. The outcome seemed inevitable. The prosecution built a rock-solid case. 38 witnesses, hundreds of exhibits, and weeks of testimony left little doubt. Routh had made 17 secret trips to the golf club, scouting for the perfect spot. He used burner phones to hide his tracks and searched for Trump's rallies, flights to Mexico, and even how to make a tourniquet. His fingerprints and DNA were found on the loaded rifle and in the sniper's nest. The most damning evidence, a 12-page manifesto offering $150,000 to anyone who would finish the job if he failed. Routh wasn't just acting alone. He tried to recruit others. The evidence showed careful planning, intent, and a willingness to kill. The jury saw a man who had done everything but pull the trigger. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. Routh's defense was crumbling. The verdict seemed all but certain. Justice was closing in. Routh's defense was weak from the start. He argued that since he never fired a shot, he wasn't guilty. But the evidence of planning and preparation was undeniable. He called only 3 witnesses, including a sniper expert who admitted the SKS rifle was unreliable. But that didn't matter. Routh's cross-examinations were unfocused and odd, missing key points. He failed to challenge the forensic and digital evidence. His legal inexperience was obvious. The jury saw through his arguments. By representing himself, Routh only hurt his case. The mountain of evidence was too much to overcome. His fate was sealed. After 3 weeks, the jury returned in under 3 hours. The verdict: guilty on all 5 charges. Routh stood motionless, his fate sealed. Suddenly, his daughter screamed. Routh was trying to stab himself with a pen. Marshals tackled him, chaos erupting in the courtroom. No serious injury, but the scene was shocking. Sarah was escorted out, shouting her love and anger at the system. Routh was brought back in shackles, silent and defeated. The judge finished the proceedings as the courtroom settled. The drama of the trial's end matched its beginning. The verdict was final, but the emotional fallout was just beginning. The courtroom would never forget the chaos. The nation watched, stunned. Justice had been served, but at a high emotional cost. The story was not yet over. News of the verdict and courtroom chaos spread fast. Trump praised law enforcement and called Routh an evil man with evil intentions. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the verdict proved political violence would not be tolerated. She called it an attack on the nation, not just one person. Inside the courtroom, Sarah Routh was distraught, shouting that the trial was rigged. Her pain was raw, her love for her father clear. The public felt relief that justice was done, but also concern about deep political divisions. 2 attempts on Trump's life in 1 year left the nation uneasy. The trial was over, but the debate about political violence was just beginning. America was left to reflect on the dangers of division and hate. With the verdict in, Routh's sentencing is set for December 18, 2025. He faces life in prison for attempted assassination. The case proved the justice system can respond to political violence. Planning a violent act is as serious as carrying it out. The verdict sends a clear message: such crimes will be punished severely. The trial brings closure, but also concern about public figure safety. Law enforcement will study the case to improve security. Routh's story is a warning about the dangers of extremism. Justice was served, but the nation's political wounds remain. The hope. This case sparks a renewed commitment to peaceful debate.